Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Blair from Taylor PD in Michigan. He started his career in 1991, so he is in his 35th year of law enforcement. He was appointed chief of police in 2017, so about 9 years as chief. He also has a bachelor's of arts degree in criminal justice. He's a graduate of Northwestern University Police School of Staff and Command. Welcome to the show, Chief Blair. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, Paige. I really appreciate having an opportunity to talk to you today.
Of course, no, I'm looking forward to it. I was going through your bio and I wanted you to be the one that gives us some insight into your career. I know that you've held a lot of different assignments, you've done a lot of really cool things throughout the last 35 years. So give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, I was born and raised Southwest Detroit in a real rough neighborhood. I always wanted to be a cop, so I came on and wanted to experience everything in police work. Started off on midnight shift like everybody else does, not sleeping, dealing with the daily battle of being tired all the time. Then I had some opportunities to do community policing, a special operations unit where we did a lot of plainclothes things, which were narcotics related, but still yet dealing with the community quite a bit. I've had opportunities to work on our SWAT team for 9 years. Firearm instructors, I've overseen our traffic division and seen some absolutely horrendous things. I took over road patrol for a number of years and got to really mentor a lot of young officers through some good and bad times. And I slowly moved up through administration. And by natural attrition, everybody left, and I was stuck here and charged. So 9 years later, I'm still sitting in the seat, and I'm the one that they turn to when they need something done. So.
I really appreciate that you said good and bad things because it's such the reality of everything that we go through. Everyone who's listening can relate to that, whether it's in our personal lives or professional. There's always going to be good stuff and there's always going to be bad stuff. So I appreciate you really kind of showing the reality of things. I think that we look at people who are at the pinnacle of their careers. You're at the top, you're chief, there's nowhere left to go. You've made it to the top of that mountain. But for you to say, hey, there was some really good times getting here, and there was also some really hard stuff getting here. And I think that we forget that when we see people at the top, we just assume that it was an easy ride.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people think that the people on the top were just installed there. They were somehow, from the moment they walked through the door, they knew they were going to be at the top. I didn't know a single person when I walked through the door here. There was probably about 130 or 140 employees at my department when I came in 91, and they didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who they were. So, yeah, it was an interesting climb, peaks and valleys along the way, personal tragedies, professional tragedies, but some absolutely wonderful moments where I truly have had an impact, I know, and have touched many lives. So, fruitful career, but not without its speed bumps.
How did you hang on? You said that you know that you've impacted lives and you've done good work. How are you able to hang on to those good things even during some of the challenging seasons?
Yeah, well, I'm going to share a brief story with you. When I was working in our special operations division, I was a supervisor, and we had done a traffic stop up on the freeway and stopped two people that were in the country, happened to been Honduran nationals, and our officers pulled a couple of handguns off them, and they were a little bit suspicious. They didn't have driver's license. We arrested them, brought them in, and through us investigating, take a look in cars, I put some pieces together, found some paper in the car that had a hand sketch diagram of a home in a local city. I contacted that agency on a complete hunch. They went out there as I was talking to them on the phone and made entry when they received no answer at the door, and they found two people inside murdered. So we had caught two murderers before the crime was even reported, and the family actually was from the Phoenix area. There was a police officer out there, and he sent me a nice, beautiful personal note talking about how I was instrumental in finding these people that had killed his family members. That wasn't just cop to cop; that was a human being reaching out to another human being, myself, and that's been incredibly fulfilling. And I'll hold that in my heart to the day I'll still remember that as a highlight and something that I can concretely tell you that I impacted and touched someone's life. So great moment for me personally, great moment for this department. And I think that family, even the tragic event that they went through, I think they can look at this as a shining accomplishment that these people were held responsible for what they did.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I think it's so important because there's always going to be really hard times in our lives and in our careers. And sometimes it's hard to look for things to be grateful for. It's hard to remember some of those things. And for you to be like, man, that is something that I have held in my heart. And I would assume, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that during some of the harder times, you were able to reflect back on that to keep going, and sometimes we need that as like a North Star of like, no, like, yes, this is really hard right now, but I know that the pursuit of doing good is worthwhile because I know that I'm doing good.
Yeah. I mean, it's beyond that. It's beyond the work thing. I look back and I know that I've tried to lead a real moral, ethical life,
Mm.
not police officer, but just in general. And in turn, I've been able to raise five wonderful children who have moved on in life, and they are successful and becoming successful. So there's a lot of things I know that this job helped me to become grounded, brought me out of the southwest side of Detroit, and put me into the position that I'm in. So there's a lot of good things. It's not just work related; it's things that spun off from it.
Do you think that your greatest achievements have been work or have they been in your personal life?
Oh God, my kids are everything, and
Mm.
she's grandkids, and they're still very young, my grandkids. But yeah, I have children from 30 down to 20. Um, and just watching them succeed, watching them start families, watching the type of people that they are, that is always going to be my crowning achievement. This job is important. I take it very serious, but that is the crowning achievement for me.
You have to tell me because I've heard this a couple times. They said being a grandparent is better than being a parent. Is that true?
You're a lot wiser, I can tell you that. It is like you're holding your child, though. You know,
Mm.
or, or you go back in time 30 years and I'm holding that kid again. I'm looking into that child and I'm seeing my kid. So yeah, those are special moments, and yeah, it's easier, and yet it's harder. It's harder because it pulls on those emotional strings, but it's easier because you know that you're not going to screw things up, and you can just have that special bond with them, and it's nice. One day maybe you feel that. Who knows?
Yeah. I hope that one day I can feel one, if not both of those. I'm definitely in a point in my life where we're considering starting a family. And so it pulls on my heartstrings to hear you say that because it's definitely like a part of my life and conversation right now. And I agree with you. I think that there are so many things that I look back on my life and I'm so proud of the things that I've done. And I have tried to be a good person. I don't know if I was always perfect. I definitely made a lot of mistakes in my life and things that, maybe I wish I could have done differently. Um, but I think I was a good person. I think that I've worked really hard in my career and I'm proud of what I do. But I'm really looking forward to the day where, I can have those achievements in my personal life too. So thank you for sharing that because it gives me hope. I'm like, maybe that is like my biggest achievement in my life is yet to come.
Look, I was no choir boy growing up. I can tell you that. I mean, the
Mm.
southwest side of Detroit, it's a rough area. I fractured some laws. I had some rough and tumble friends. Had a couple of my friends killed, homicides. Um, by the grace of God and by having a great family structure, some siblings that weren't afraid to put their foot in my butt, and some friends that were good people too. We kept each other in line, and some of us have turned out and had wonderful careers and wonderful family lives. So yeah, no, I've made lots of mistakes. In college years, I'm glad there weren't cell phones. So
For
there it is.
sure. Yeah, I feel you on that one. But I was curious, and this was a question that popped up when you were giving me your intro. You said that you did grow up in a tough area. Obviously law enforcement was present, I'm guessing, during that time. And did you have positive experiences with law enforcement? Is that what made you want to enter into the career, or
Um, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. More story time with John now. Uh, Summer of 1984, I was with my best friend at the time. And for those that are much older than you, they would know what this is. I had my sweet green Gremlin, and I was at the corner getting gas late at night coming home. And I got carjacked. At 16 years old, I had a gun shoved in my mouth, and I got forced into a covered bus stop, and they made me kneel down. And another gentleman came in with a very large knife and told me not to look at me. They're going to kill me. And then within moments, my friend who was with me, who went inside to pay for the $2 in gas, because at that time that was enough. Uh, Brought him in at gunpoint, made him kneel down. They took my car and they went and shot at a pizza delivery guy in my local city. So that was the impetus for me to be a police officer.
Wow.
We were questioned by our detectives, and they accused myself and my friend of being trying to buy dope, and we got ripped. In fact, that is obviously not what happened. So I didn't like that feeling of being carjacked. I didn't like the feeling of this person ever being caught, nor did I like the detective accusing my friend and I of doing something totally illegal, buying drugs at the time. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this the right way. And I was an active person too. I was an athlete, and I didn't want to sit behind a desk like I am now. So that's what led me to being a police officer.
Wow. I find that to be so interesting that an incredibly scary, I would guess that's so scary, event in your life really set the trajectory for your career, but then also learning how you want to impact change and do things differently. And um, do you think that that particular event that happened and not liking the feeling of being accused of something that you didn't do, do you feel like you carried that with you throughout your career and the way that you speak to people today?
Without question. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just that incident. I mean, that's a defining moment in my life without any question.
Yeah.
I remember that day as if it happened yesterday. But how I was raised, I'm not afraid to share. I'm Catholic. I'm a practicing Catholic. I'm not a cradle Catholic. So I was always raised with those moral ethical values. And I thought that has guided me well in life. But yeah, all those things encompassing are what led me to where I'm at today. And it led me with how I lead this police department and how I've changed the culture of this police department and how I continue to mold the new officers that come through the door. So, and again, with my kids, not just with my work life, my personal life as well.
Yeah. Are you willing to talk a little bit about that other side of the coin? I find it interesting that, and you said this earlier, you said you've had a lot of great things in your work life. You had a lot of great things in your personal life. You've had a lot of tragedies at work, a lot of tragedies at home. I think so often we forget that there's two sides of it. Like at the end of the day, everyone here, we're all humans and we all have another aspect of ourselves that's not work. Can you share a little bit about maybe some of your personal experiences? I know you shared a story with me offline, and I'm wondering if you're willing to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost a daughter at 35 days old back in 1996. That's when reality sets in with you. I did have one child, and this was my second, and she passed away. And it was tough. It not only rocks your personal world, but your relationship with your wife. And it was tough for us. And it's hard to get through those things. And in turn, that comes into your work life as well. You're thinking about things, and it was rough. It was really rocky, and I had to learn to lean on other people. I had to
Mhm.
go to support systems. I had to go to counseling. My wife and I went to counseling for this, and I've been able to take that and use that for our new officers walking through the door, and I've been able to use it with our kids and try to point them in the right direction. But yeah, I mean that was tough to lose a child. Um, it's very difficult. I get emotional even thinking about it. We see that here at work quite a bit too, where we'll have children pass away. Last week we had an 11-year-old that was struck and killed by a car. He was coming back from the store, and the lady that hit him was not drunk. She wasn't high. She wasn't distracted. She wasn't on the phone. She wasn't speeding. He just stopped in a lane and was struck by the car. So I can empathize with these parents, and I know their pain. And although it's not identical, I believe grief is very personal. It's areas, but I think it's personal. And I can use my past experiences for not only as people that I encompass out on the road, people that work for me and with me, and then my family.
Thank you for sharing. And I know you said it's story time. You're like, it's story time with John, but have you always been comfortable sharing stories like this with other people and with your team? Or do you feel like that was something that you've learned over time to become comfortable with, being vulnerable, especially in a leadership position?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's half the reason I'm in the position I am, that I am willing to share. I am willing to talk. I don't sit in an office. I have a couple of things in my locker. I have a picture of my dog. I have a picture of my family. But I also have a pair of tennis shoes from my nephew that got eaten up. Sorry, and passed away from cancer in 1992. And I'm sorry. Um, I'm turning to a sissy on you. Brought back bad memories.
It's okay.
My nephew passed away in 1992. He got eaten up by cancer, and he was 6 years old when he passed. And I have his little tennis shoes that are in my locker. And I have a crucifix that hangs in there, and I have a little hat that my daughter wore when before she passed away. And every morning I see that's a reminder to me, about the personal side to this. So again, that's guiding me in my life. I don't have a lock on my locker. And I always tell my aunt, they say, "Why don't you have a lock on your locker? It's crazy." So, well, I trust you guys with my life.
Mm,
Worry about you stealing something from my locker. So, I mean, there's a lot of personal things. There's a lot of tears that are shed. Here I am, a chief of police of 35 years with tears in my eyes. There's a lot of tears that are shed in police departments that people don't know about. They don't. But that is the reality of what we go through. And I think if we eat that and we don't share that, it leads to bad results, alcoholism, domestic violence, the divorces, and all the terrible things. So at times you're going to see tears in my eyes. I've given interviews to national media things, and sometimes you get choked up. So it happens. Definitely, I'm human. And that emotional side, I think our officers see from me. And I think they feel that I'm very authentic, and I want them to be authentic too.
yeah. And that's exactly what I was thinking while you were sharing is like, I appreciate that. Like, I don't see weakness at all. I see so much strength. And it's to me, when I talk to people who are so incredibly walled off and guarded, and it's just like, yep, I'm good. Everything's good. I've been perfect. I've had like this great career and, nothing gets to me. I feel like it's incredibly disconnecting. Because I can't relate to that. We are all human. We all have emotions. We all have things that we've gone through at varying levels, and for someone to look me in the eye and say, I'm good. Like nothing impacts me. I'm like, wow, like what does that say about me? Because I can't relate to that at all, And so I really appreciate you having that vulnerability and the authenticity to share the things that are hard for you. And I know that everybody who's listening and everyone within your department can relate to that because we are all human. And I think we have to remember that there's a human side to this.
Yeah, with police work, we get labeled a lot of things. And when I have my moments and I speak to people, whether it's the media or people out in society, I tell them, hey, look, sometimes you guys expect computer like precision from a human being. We feel emotions, we feel fear, we make mistakes. Unfortunately, our mistakes aren't 2 + 2 is 5. Our mistakes could cost them their lives. And that's the hard part. And sometimes I feel it's unfair, but it's also part of the job. And sometimes you got to suck it up and you do what you have to do. But if you do it silently, it eats you up. And that's why you see the alcoholism. That's why you see the suicide rates. Financial problems, you name it, that goes hand in hand with it. And I watch our federal agencies going through that now.
Mm.
Uh, it can be very well meaning and something comes out as it shouldn't. And next thing you know, you're labeled as this terrible person. And they're struggling with it now. I see it. We have federal partners, and I talk to them, and they're struggling. I mean, they're having a hard time,
Yeah.
and tough. It's tough.
Yeah. Do you think that the foundation of wellness, because, obviously wellness is a part of what we talk about. Do you think that being able to offload the stress and not turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like alcoholism and the things that you just mentioned, do you think that the foundation of wellness is sharing and connection and communication, or what do you think is kind of that baseline foundation that sets everyone up for success?
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to have a support system, and it has to be a positive support system. It can't be drugs, can't be alcohol. Cops are very addictive people. They are, man, illegal gambling or just gambling in general. We have both male and female that run around, sleep with everybody under the sun, and we're adults here. That's not a support system. It really isn't. We want things that are positive. I really have pushed both mental but physical wellness as well. Talk to them about how to eat properly. We have a 3,500 square foot weight room. We have an 1,100 square foot cardio room. So I promote that. Not only do I promote it with my mouth, I'm in there.
Mm,
They see me in there. And we don't have conversations as Chief Blair and Officer Smith. It's John and Mike.
yeah,
And I always tell them that there's no rank here in the weight room. There's no rank in the cardio room. And obviously, they're respectful, but um, that's where I think the relationships are made, and that's when I think you can get into and you find out what's going on. Having a bad night at home. I just had a baby, Chief, and the kid's not sleeping. My wife's tired, and you listen to that stuff, and I think that's the point when you can really mold these young officers and give them a little bit of my experience, things that I've gone through, and if I'm vulnerable and I can talk to them about that, then I think they feel a little bit better about it.
yeah. There's a couple things I wanted to touch on, and something that you said earlier. You're like, I trust these guys with my life, and so I'm not going to have a lock on my locker. And I think if we're going to have these conversations of building trust, you got to know each other, right? And it has to go deeper than that surface level of like, you good, yeah, good, cool, and like walking past each other. You have to actually genuinely know each other, because at the end of the day, you do have each other's backs. You are a team, and there are going to be situations that might require um, life or death, and you have to be able to show up for each other and know each other. So I like that statement of there's no rank in the workout space. I've never heard that before.
Well, that's the way it should be, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
mean, that's an area where you're building a lot of things, not only muscles, but you're building strength, real
Hmm.
strength, strength of character. There's a lot of things that come along with lifting weights or doing cardio.
Yep.
Um, there's a lot where you're challenging yourself. So I think that's super important. And to walk the walk is a big thing for me.
Yeah. I want to talk about this idea of strength, because I agree with you. And I think that when you do hard things, you then have the confidence that you can do more hard things, right? And so there have been plenty of times, we can put this in a simple example that everyone can relate to, is you're in a really hard workout and you're like, I don't think I can do it. And then someone pushes you and they're like, yes, you can, 5 more reps or whatever it is. And then you do it and you're like, okay, I did it. Now I know I have the capacity and the ability to do it. And so you're creating more confidence over time. And I find it really interesting, this conversation of strength versus weakness. And we hear it all the time where they're like, well, if I'm vulnerable, I'm weak. If I need resources, I'm weak. I don't want to give the perception of weakness. I need to give this perception of strength. And then to your point of what we said earlier, then the coping mechanisms are, escaping, numbing, avoiding, and we start to see what those behaviors, end up. We said drugs, alcohol, things of that nature. To me, and I've done everything. Like I can relate to all of this. I am, I'm not innocent in the way, that I've never been through it. I've done all the unhealthy healthy coping mechanisms, and that's the weakness. It is so much stronger and harder to do the hard things, like to go through, to do the reps, to go to the counselor, to go focus on your physical fitness, to, be more disciplined in your behaviors and in the coping mechanisms that you choose in a healthy way. That's way harder and stronger than the opposite. And still the conversation is, well, if I do these things, I'm weak. And so I find it just so interesting that it's like the reverse is so true, it's the opposite of what everyone says.
Yeah, you're only kidding yourself if you say that this particular job as a police officer doesn't get to you. You're just kidding. I'm fine. That only goes so far because we know it's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. And, I think when you say it to somebody and they're struggling, it makes it even worse for them. They're like, what the hell's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why is that to me if he's so good? In reality, I'm not good. That doesn't mean I haven't learned to cope and I haven't figured things out, and I'm much more mature about things now. And I can brush some things off, but people always say, that you put it into a box. You compartmentalize it and you throw it away. Well, yeah, you're just pushing it away. It's still there. Hell, I remember the first fatal crash I went on. I was just starting my field training program, and a guy got ejected from a car, and it tumbled and it hit him across the head, and literally it looked like someone squished his head. And you're seeing that, and I still remember it 35 years later. And I remember looking into his car, and it was flipped over. And on the dashboard, up by the visor, was a picture of his kids and his wife. I mean, that stuff, I don't care how long I do this, I'm going to remember that. So you can push it away, you can learn to deal with it, but it's always going to be there. And
Yeah.
that's what everybody needs to know. And it's not a weakness. You're a human being, you're not machine.
Yeah. Well, and I think pushing it away is the easy thing to do, right? Like for
Yeah.
me, like the hardest thing was to admit that it was hard and that I was human and that I needed resources and to actually take action to implement those things. And you said this earlier, you said I take action. And I know when we talked offline, it was this idea of like we're not just talking about this stuff. Like because you can talk about things all day long, but unless you're taking action, nothing is going to happen, right? And so I want to circle back to this idea. So, as chief of police, as a leader within the organization, do you think that it's important for all leaders to show that they're also doing these things and taking action?
Well, of course. I mean, I always tell you, lead by example.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a very simple statement, but yes, it's very true. And you can say what you want, and you can even show up to the charity events, and you can make yourself look wonderful. People know what really is in your heart, and I have no problem sharing my heart. And I would encourage anyone, in any type of leadership position, share your heart. Talk about where you screwed up, the mistakes you made. I don't think that makes you less of a person. I think it makes you more real. And I think now, especially the generation we're living in, they want real. They're very empathetic. Your generation is much more empathetic than mine. I think it's wonderful how empathetic you are. And I think the older generation, people like myself that are in these positions, I think they need to understand that. The brashness only goes so well. I definitely won't get political on you, but you might have tremendous ideas and your heart might be in the right place, but if you give the wrong delivery, you say it in the wrong manner, boy, it's going to rub people the wrong way, and you're just not going to have that support. So empathy goes a long way.
Yeah. And I think what you said earlier is it's also authenticity, because I think that people can sniff it out if you're
Mhm.
trying to make it seem like you're showing your heart, but you're really not, and so I think that that secondary or that addition of you have to be authentic is important. And I'm really, I want to kind of pause for a second because I feel like you put me in the younger generation for a second, and I really appreciate that. I was like,
Yeah,
wait, he thinks I'm young. That's so cool. I love
sure.
it. I'm like, we might be actually like the same, but yeah, I agree with you. I think, and it's hard. Some of the scariest moments of my life have been sharing the messy parts of myself and putting myself out there to be judged. I think that we all have a level of fear and uncomfortability with that at some point. It's not easy to, I can't tell you how many conferences I've done or briefing rooms that I've stepped into, and it never gets easier for me. Like my heart is just pounding, and I'm like, here I am, and you leave yourself out there for people to love you or not, or everything in between. And I have found it to be a superpower to be able to share the things that we have been through in our lives, good and bad, in the pursuit of helping other people. Hopefully by us sharing, that allows other people to feel like they can also do that, and that they are also human and not alone. And maybe that empowers them to share their story and help other people. And it's this domino effect that happens. And so although it's uncomfortable sometimes and it's scary, and I have anxiety about it sometimes because it's hard to put yourself out there in front of a room full of strangers, I find it to be necessary.
Yeah, well, any struggles you may have gone through in your life, any struggles I've gone through, and I equate it to being in the weight room, and it's a hard workout. And your life was a hard workout for you. Well, you own that. Once you get through it, you own it. No one can take away that workout. No one can take away the thing that you went through, that you survived. They can't take that away from you. No matter how long your life, no one can come up and say, no, you didn't do that workout. No, I did do that workout. No, I did get through that tragic event in my life. I did get through those terrible times in my life when I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. You own that. It's yours. And that's the philosophy I try to pump through to these people. You
Yeah.
got, you survived, you got stronger because of it, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, it could be whatever it is, you survived it. And no one can take that away from you ever.
I like that you said we got through it. I'm a very visual person. And when you say that, like I see like someone going through the storm, and getting to the other end. And I love that you said stronger because of it. And I think that's the goal. It's like, how can we get to the other side of it? And how can we learn, and how can we grow? And how can we then help other people to also get through the storm as well? Because everyone has their own. But what's not getting through it is not dealing with it, right? You kind of get stuck in that storm instead of getting through it. So I really liked that. I did want to ask, kind of for the future, what conversations are you having to develop your team and to train, future leadership? And what are those conversations, and how are you maybe injecting wellness and training into that?
Yeah, we have peer support. We have three officers in particular that are trained, that act as peers, as mentors. We also bring in, we have two different companies that come in at any type of tragic event. Anytime we think an officer's been traumatized, whether it's an individual or a shift, we'll bring someone in and speak with them. We start them off when they very first come in through the door. We have our original week-long training program for them, and we do a wellness program with that. It's when I get to talk to the officers and I share my stories and I talk about the support that they have. And no one's going to share your story unless you want it shared. And I talk to them about not being a weakness, that you are going to have moments where you fail. You are going to have moments when you think, I can't do this. And it might not be just at work, it could be at home. And I share my stories. So that's what we've done. We've used peers with professionals to step in when necessary and made it where there is no stigma for them seeking treatment or help. Again, whether it's at home or here at work.
Love it. For the younger generation, and maybe we can think of it this way as, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self with all the knowledge that you have now, what words of wisdom would you share with the younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that come to mind with that. I always tell these guys, who is the most important person to you? Who means the most to you? And when you're at work or you're out in the world doing whatever you're doing, you think that that person is standing right behind you watching you. And you ask yourself, would I act this way or would I do this thing if they were watching?
Mm.
The answer is no. Then I tell them, don't do that shit. That's it. I tell my kids that, but I tell my work people that. And the other one, as I already touched on this, is you have to have a real support system. You have to have family. You have to have friends. You have to have positive hobbies. It's not in a bottle. It's not with you running around with every person. And it's just not that. Lean on. I don't push religion on people. I am Catholic. I don't push it on people, but I think it's a good thing to, whether you're spiritual or you have some sort of religious faith. You can't believe that this life is nothing. You can't believe that this life has no purpose. You have a purpose, and you need to find that purpose. And I think the ones that have gone into law enforcement have an idea that that purpose is helping other people, as hokey as that may sound to people, and that's silly. It's really not. It's really not. I think the officers really want to help people. And if that's what your purpose is, you do things not only legally, but you do them morally and ethically correct. You think about your favorite person standing behind you at all times. You think about positive support systems that get you through this career. And that's what I've used for our new officers and what I'm going to continue to live by myself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on here and being vulnerable and authentic with me and our listeners and sharing your words of wisdom. Thank you so much.
Well, it's always good to talk to you. So I appreciate this. It's good to have people want to know what we're really doing. It's always nice for people to listen and hear another side of the story. And anyone that's willing to help us, which I know you are, I appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.